Hello and welcome to the news update on Papyrus Global TV. I am Christiana Babayo. Before we begin, here are the headlines. Central African Republic votes as President Touadéra seeks third term. Guineans head to polls as Doumbouya closes campaign amid democracy concerns. Pope Leo XIV calls for peace for nations torn by war in Christmas message. Mali's cultural and artistic biennial opens in historic Timbuktu. Somalia holds historic one-person, one-vote election in Mogadishu. UN warns al-Shabaab remains a major threat in Somalia and Kenya. Turkish president and Sudan's Sovereignty Council meet amid world's worst humanitarian crisis. And now the news in full. Voters in the Central African Republic (CAR) went to the polls on 26 December 2025 as incumbent President Faustin Archange Touadéra seeks a controversial third term in office. The general election, which includes presidential, legislative, municipal, and regional races, is being closely watched as a pivotal moment for the deeply unstable nation. Touadéra, in power since 2016, entered the race as a clear favorite against six challengers, including former Prime Minister Anicet Georges Dologuel. Amid concerns from civil society, opposition figures, and human rights observers over the credibility of the contest, opponents have criticized the 2023 constitutional referendum that removed presidential term limits and extended the length of mandates, a change perceived as designed to entrench Touadéra's hold on power. The president has campaigned heavily on security improvements and peace deals with several armed groups that have diminished rebel activity in parts of the country, while also relying on foreign military support, including Russian security partners and Rwandan forces working alongside UN peacekeepers. Despite those gains, insecurity persists, particularly in eastern regions, raising questions about safety at polling stations and the overall inclusivity of the process. Citizens across Guinea are voting in the presidential election scheduled for 28 December 2025, with campaigning concluding as incumbent General Mamadi Doumbouya prepares to transition from co-leader to elected head of state. The vote marks the country's first presidential election since Doumbouya seized power in a 2021 military coup and comes amid growing concerns about democratic backsliding and the fairness of the electoral environment. Doumbouya's final campaign rally in Conakry's Palace of the People drew large crowds expressing support for his leadership, with backers praising infrastructure development and anti-corruption efforts under his administration. At the same time, the electoral period has been overshadowed by a crackdown on dissent, with several opposition leaders barred from running or forced into exile, and civil liberties restricted, according to observers and opposition supporters. The election follows a controversial constitutional referendum that expanded presidential powers and extended terms, enabling Doumbouya to stand despite earlier commitments not to seek office. Around 6.7 million voters are expected to cast ballots at over 24,000 polling stations nationwide, with early indications suggesting a strong turnout. Official results are anticipated within 48 hours of the vote, and a runoff may be required if no candidate achieves an outright majority. On December 25th, Christmas Day 2025, Pope Leo XIV delivered a solemn and impassioned appeal for peace and reconciliation in countries ravaged by armed conflict, urging global leaders to pursue diplomacy, justice, and compassion in the face of ongoing human suffering. In his traditional Christmas message to attendees in St. Peter's Square, the Pope acknowledged the plight of millions living amid war, displacement, and violence, calling on the international community to intensify efforts towards lasting peace. He specifically referenced conflicts affecting families and communities across Africa, the Middle East, and other regions, exhorting governments and citizens alike to embrace dialogue over division and mercy over retaliation. Pope Leo emphasized that the Christmas celebration, a time of hope and renewal, must extend beyond ritual observance to inspire action that protects the vulnerable, heals trauma, and restores human dignity. He urged world leaders to reflect on the Christmas message of peace and to work tirelessly to end hostilities, uphold human rights, and build societies grounded in justice, solidarity, and human respect. The city of Timbuktu, famed for its ancient scholarly heritage and desert beauty, has launched its cultural and artistic biennial, drawing artists, performers, intellectuals, and visitors from across Africa and beyond. The event, now in its latest iteration, celebrates Malian and Sahelian cultural expression through exhibitions, music, dance, traditional arts, and scholarly dialogues. Set against the backdrop of Timbuktu's historic mud brick mosque and UNESCO recognized manuscripts, the biennial showcases both traditional craftsmanship and contemporary creativity, highlighting the resilience of Mali's cultural identity in the face of years of insecurity and social upheaval. Festival organizers said the event is designed to reaffirm the city's role as a beacon of culture, learning, and artistic innovation. Programming includes visual art installations, theater performances, poetry readings, panel discussions, and workshops exploring themes of heritage preservation, community renewal, and the intersections of culture and peace. Artists from varied backgrounds are presenting pieces that reflect Mali's diverse ethnic traditions, as well as contemporary responses to regional challenges. Local officials and cultural advocates noted that the biennial also serves as a platform for empowering young creatives with several initiatives aimed at mentorship, digital arts training, and cross border artistic collaboration. We will now go on a short break, and when we come back, the news will continue. Stay tuned.
The Papyrus Global, we don't just cover events, we create cinematic experiences. From red carpets to birthdays, gala dinners, and your fairy tale weddings, we bring your moments to life with high-tech precision. Our gadgets are smarter, our lenses sharper, and our team simply world-class. Trust the Papyrus Global to tell your story in the boldest, brightest way possible.
Welcome back, and now the news will continue. Residents of Somalia's capital have cast ballots in a landmark one person, one vote local election, marking the first direct vote of its kind in over 5 decades and representing a major shift away from the country's traditional clan-based power sharing system. The election took place on 25th December 2025 and was organized by the National Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission across Mogadishu's 16 districts, with around 20 political parties fielding candidates and more than 900,000 registered voters eligible to participate. Somalia has long selected local councils and national legislators through negotiated clan arrangements, with leaders subsequently electing the president. The introduction of universal suffrage at the local level is viewed by analysts as the most tangible step yet towards broader democratic reforms and could set the stage for direct elections at the federal level, including parliamentary and presidential polls planned for 2026. However, the electoral process was controversial. Opposition parties rejected the vote as flawed and one-sided, expressing concern that it was organized without widespread consensus among federal member states. The United Nations panel of experts has warned that the extremist group Al-Shabaab continues to be the single greatest threat to peace and security in Somalia and the wider East African region, particularly neighboring Kenya, despite ongoing military efforts to curb its operations. The group retains the capacity to conduct complex asymmetric attacks and sustain influence through extortion, forced recruitment, and propaganda networks. The report highlights that Al-Shabaab has carried out frequent attacks, particularly in border regions of Kenya, including improvised explosive device explosions, raids, and kidnappings, underscoring the transnational nature of the threat. In Somalia, the group continues to challenge government authority and has even attempted to assassinate senior officials, reflecting persistent security vulnerabilities. while national and regional forces, including the Africa Union Stabilization Mission and multinational partners, have degraded some of Al Shabaab's capabilities. The expert panel emphasized that its resilience and adaptability necessitate sustained and coordinated counterterrorism responses. The UN Security Council recently extended the mandate of the African Union's peacekeeping force in Somalia through the end of 2026 to support ongoing stabilization efforts. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has held high-level talks with General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, chairman of Sudan's Sovereignty Council, as Sudan's protracted civil war continues to devastate the country, displacing an estimated 13 million people and creating one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. The meeting in Ankara focused on the escalating conflict that erupted in April 2023 between Sudan's National Army and the Parliamentary Rapid Support Forces (RSF), a war that has forced millions from their homes, ruptured essential services, and severely hampered access to food, medicine, and shelter. Erdogan reiterated Turkey's concern over the scale of humanitarian suffering, particularly pointing to grave violations of human rights reported in regions such as El Fasher and underscoring the urgency of coordinated action to stem the violence and address civilian needs. Turkey offered support in humanitarian assistance and pledged to deepen cooperation with Sudan across multiple sectors, including trade, defense, agriculture,